We unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to you live. Boxingego unpack. Yeah. We unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to you live.
Promoter Tom Brown, who works with PBC, says that of course Eddie Hearn is trying to pawn off a Demetrius Andrade fight while having PBC foot the bill. We're gonna talk about that. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Make sure you smash the like button. Also subscribe to my channel for the latest and greatest in boxing. Sign up for TUBEBUDDY using my link. Listen, it takes money to make money. TUBEBUDDY is an awesome way to do that if you're on the YouTube platform, to optimize your videos so they get seen, get searched, turn up in searches, and ultimately allowing you to make more money. I started off with 0 subscribers. Now I'm over 200,000 subscribers, and I definitely use TUBEBUDDY on a daily video basis for videos like this. So consider TUBEBUDDY, link in the description. Appreciate you. Now, link in the description. Promoter Tom Brown, who frequently works with PBC in his promotion company, says that Eddie Hearn, of course, is trying to pawn off Demetrius Andrade and have PBC foot the bill. This stems after Eddie Hearn post Demetrius Andrade Liam Williams fight. He made statements and said that, you know, I'm just going to paraphrase. Eddie Hearn basically said Demetrius Andrade, the way he looked, guys like Golovkin and Charlo should feel that they can beat him based on his performance, because he says Andrade was hurt and Andrade got tired in there. And he said Andrade will come cheap. He'll fight for whatever Derevchenko got, either on DAZN or on Showtime. And Tom Brown has since responded to this. I will read his quote, and after that, I'll give you my thoughts. He says, quote, "The problem is this. Nobody wants to see Demetrius Andrade fight." And then I want to steal a line from Eddie Hearn. Demetrius Andrade is absolutely horrendous to watch. So, of course, Eddie Hearn would like to get Andrade off of his platform of DAZN and have PBC get stuck paying for a Charlo Andrade fight, right? As far as Charlo, Tom Brown says, Charlo, he's coming off an impressive victory over Sergey Derevchenko. Derevchenko gave Triple G Gennady Golovkin his most grueling fight to date. He handled him easier than both Triple G and Danny Jacobs did, so that was a huge victory over a very talented fighter. And then Jamal's a 2-weight world champion. His last fight against a 154-pounder was against the undefeated #1 contender with the IBF, Julian J. Rock Williams. Charlo retained his title, getting a 5th round stoppage. He dropped him, I think, once in the 2nd round and twice in the 5th round before the fight was stopped. So he's got a bit of a resume and a lot more than anyone's given him credit for. Boom. Shout out to Tom Brown. Listen, I agree 1000%. You know, Eddie Hearn, he's trying to be a sly fox here, and I agree. Now, people keep saying Demetrius Andrade is so horrific to watch. I personally don't agree with that. I like Andrade. I think Andrade is a great fighter. You know, I guess you could say his style is an acquired taste. The biggest thing is sometimes Andrade makes questionable, you know, decisions in the fight. Like when he's fighting Lucas Keeler, he hurt him, and then he was just fighting super uber aggressive. And I don't think he had to do that. I think he should have just kind of got back to his boxing. But I don't have a problem watching Andrade. You know, a lot of people are making this big to-do about he's so hard to watch. I've seen far worse styles and worse fights. Andrade mixes up. He has power to hurt you. He could be slick. He could box. He could move. You know, he could go toe-to-toe. He's a southpaw. So I personally don't have a problem watching him. However, when we're talking about the clout chase from Eddie Hearn, you know, look at it. You have a ton of people with old media, and they say PBC is not this, PBC is not that. But you frequently see other promoters constantly talking about PBC, right? And they use their own platform to, good or bad, try to admonish PBC fights. We've seen Bob Arum do it. After Terrence Crawford fought against Amir Khan, on ESPN Plus pay-per-view, it did dreadful numbers, but post-fight, and the fight ended weird because Amir Khan, virtually quit in that fight. And Bob Arum used the ESPN pay-per-view platform to try to go in on Al Heyman and PBC, and I guess put pressure on him and says that Al Heyman is the cancer of boxing. He's ruining boxing. He won't work with anybody. Demetrius Andrade, he fights on DAZN against his mandatory Liam Williams in that fight. And then post-fight, the conversation becomes about Charlo, when DAZN itself has fighters like Canelo that's working with Eddie Hearn in the platform, Triple G, who has an exclusive deal with DAZN, Caleb Smith, Billy Joe Saunders. How come Andrade can't get his own fights on his own platform with stablemates, people who are on the same label as him? Yet and still you want me to advocate and push for the one fight with Jermall Charlo. As Tom Brown has said, he's under-respected with his resume, the J-Rock performance and Derevyanchenko, who really beat Triple G, right? And you want me to advocate for the one fight that is inherently harder to make between two different rival networks with different agendas, different, protocols. The cross-promotional fight that would require, a fighter from this platform to go over to this network, etc. But Demetrius Andrade, he has all these names that are tethered to DAZN, and yet and still he's fighting foreign fighters from Eddie Hearns' stable, and not even the ones that people may have been familiar with, like Caleb Smith or Billy Joe Saunders. Caleb Smith, who won the World Boxing Super Series. And I'm talking about before Canelo. Now it doesn't really matter because Canelo annihilated Caleb Smith, so I don't know how many people want to see that. But I'm talking about when Caleb Smith was undefeated and winning and thought to be more of a threat, right? So Eddie Hearn's trying to be slick. Tom Brown is absolutely right. Of course, Hearn wants Andrade off his platform on DAZN, and he's trying to pawn it off on Showtime and tell them to foot the bill because he can't get compelling fights for Demetrius Andrade. Let's call it what it is. Now, this has to be a telltale red flag for anybody who's been in the world of boxing like myself, such as myself, for the last several years. Reason being, Eddie Hearn, when he first came to America, anybody who had a camera in his face and a microphone, he would rave about how DAZN was here for this American takeover, as he called it. They had $1 billion war chest, and they were going to take over the game, and American promoters would be shaking in their boots. During these rants, Eddie Hearn also told you that they got the best talent on their side from 160 to 168. So if Jermall Charlo wanted to become a star in America, this is how pompous you had a British fighter to come to America and tell American promoters who've been in the game as long as Bob Arum, guys with big backings like CBS owned Showtime, Steven Espinoza. You had this pompous British promoter who was telling the world that an American fighter from Houston, to become a star, he has to come to this British-owned DAZN platform in order to become a star. This was around 2017, and the videos are still on YouTube. He says if Jermall Charlo really wants to become a star, we have all the best guys. But the problem is DAZN did have talented names, and majority of those fights outside of Canelo Jacobs, they didn't make. Triple G still hasn't fought Canelo on the DAZN platform, a trilogy fight. Canelo still hasn't fought Andrade. Triple G still hasn't fought Andrade. Triple G didn't get the Canelo fight, and so on and so forth. So you had all that talent, and then things changed and people's profile regressed, like Triple G and Andrade. Andrade's really because he hasn't, had the big name fights, and then now you want Showtime to pick up the fight. But you told the whole world it was the American takeover, and that if Charlo wanted to become a star, that he had to fight on your platform, and now you're trying to shovel Andrade off of DAZN, and you want Showtime to pick up the bill. So how does that work? How do you go from American takeover and saying that, you have to come mess with us on DAZN in order to be a somebody. But now one of your undefeated fighters, a black American undefeated fighter, you don't know what to do with him. You keep having him fight guys that he's whooping, and nobody really wants to see him fight. He has talent. Time and age is not on his side. You know, he's just getting older, and you want PBC and Charlo to force the issue and make the fight when they got their own stuff that they're worried about. Charlo, being from Houston, is fighting on Juneteenth, which is historically, if you know Juneteenth, historically a black holiday, right? Where the slaves were freed. And if I'm not mistaken, it originated in Houston. You know, this is where the news was first announced or whatever, and that's where Charlo was from. So they got him fighting on Showtime. It's already been announced, Juneteenth. So that should be a good fight with Montiel. Meanwhile, you got Charlo ambitions, and the whole DAZN staff is trying to advocate for a Charlo fight. But Andrade, you don't even know what you're gonna do with it. You don't know what you're like, how to promote him. And like I said, you want PBC to foot the bill. And the reality is, Andrade, I knew about Andrade before I knew about Charlo, but Andrade's brand has not, if anything, has kind of regressed. He went from calling out Canelo. Now he just seems almost content that he's not getting these big fights year upon year, year after year. And now you want to, you know, make the Charlo fight, and you want the media to advocate it. But boxing is also a business, as people frequently say. So it's up to you to uplift the profile, give some good fights to your fighter, build the integrity of their brand, and then those fights will naturally happen. And we're seeing Terrence Crawford and Demetrius Andrade, similar situations, two different promoters, but very similar situations. Two undefeated, skillful black fighters that haven't been marketed. Their audience is, you know, more so they probably would do the best in their respective hometowns, and they're advocating for PBC fighters as their whole promotional push. Like, Crawford wants to fight Errol Spence. That's what he was pushing, at least for a while. Or Pacquiao, two guys that were working with Al Heyman in recent memory. Andrade, his claim to fame is now, you know, pushing for the Charlo fight after he beats Liam Williams. You know, it's uneventful, it's uninteresting, and it's really your job as a promoter to put together compelling fights for your fighter, and we haven't seen that with Andrade. You know, people would argue that the best name on his resume could even be Vanes Martirosyan from the HBO days. That was a good fight. That was a respected Olympian, etc. He's regressing. You have him fighting Lucas Keeler. Vanes Martirosyan at the time was more of a, you know, threat than Lucas Keeler and Liam Williams, right? They were more decorated, known in boxing circuits. So what has Eddie Hearn really done for his black American undefeated champion? You know, you can't just push this on PBC because you failed to provide him. They could have gave Andrade Julio Cesar Chavez, but they gave it to Jacobs. You know what I mean? So you could have gave him Andrade versus Triple G, but guys like Steve Rolls get the fight, and guys like Camille Sesmeta. Jaime Munguia, another DAZN fighter, is the mandatory for Demetrius Andrade. That would be a good name. People would respect a win, but they won't make the fight. So you're not going to be able to shove it off on PBC to promote your fighter. They don't have no deal with him. Andrade is not signed to Al Heyman. So you might as well just worry about building your own fighter. And then if the fans are clamoring for it because he's in his own right fighting his great fights, and then Charlo's doing his thing, then they meet in the middle. But that's not the case. Constantly, I see a lot of PBC fighters, and they're having to do more of the heavy lifting. Derevyanchenko and J-Rock are name two names on Andrade's resume that you believe were more in prime than Derevyanchenko coming off the Triple G performance and an undefeated J-Rock. You see what I'm saying? So you're not going to just get your way when you want it because you're clout chasing. So my thoughts, I agree with Tom Brown 1,000%. They've done a horrible job providing Andrade with opportunities and really the fights that would get him known and show how good he could be. and now they want someone else to give him that clemency or reprieve or fix his career by making the fight. It just doesn't work like that. Let me know what you guys think. We working. Are you tired of your YouTube videos not getting any views? Well, consider TubeBuddy. I've used TubeBuddy for years to scale up my YouTube channel. Now we're sitting over 200,000 subscribers. TubeBuddy is a browser extension that offers a ton of built-in productivity and time-saving services to take your channel to the next level. Use my link in the description to get started with TubeBuddy and level up your channel faster. We working. So if you enjoyed this video and want more content like this on the channel, you can show your appreciation by going to the PayPal donate button or the YouTube support button, and you can donate any amount that you feel is equivalent to the value of this video. Much more to come. Thank you guys for your support. Boxingego, the future of boxing.